Okay, so we're diving into decentralized governance today and how it connects with stuff like Bitcoin. It's a hot topic right now.
It really is, yeah. Gets to the core of power, like who
Yeah.
really controls things in this digital world, you know?
And this deep dive is wild because this article doesn't just stick to the tech stuff. It brings up these huge ideas that have been around forever,
Totally. It even mentions Plato's philosopher king idea. You know, the perfect ruler is like this super wise moral person.
which, let's be honest, is asking a lot. Even the best leaders in history have had their issues. What happens if the person at the top isn't so perfect after all?
And that's what the article calls a single point of failure. Like, think about the Roman Empire falling apart, or even a financial crisis today. One bad move at the top, and the whole system can crumble.
Okay, that's kind of scary. So is that where Bitcoin comes in? Instead of all our eggs in one basket, we spread things out?
That's one way to think about it. The article calls it freedom money.
Whoa, freedom money.
Yeah, it's a strong term, but it shows how this tech lets people bypass those traditional financial systems. Imagine sending money anywhere instantly. No bank or government permission needed.
So someone living under an oppressive regime, their finances are always watched. Bitcoin could be huge for them.
Exactly. It gives people financial freedom that you just can't get in a super centralized system.
That's pretty amazing. And it's not only about money, right? This article also talks about Nostr doing something similar for free speech.
Absolutely. Nostr is fascinating. It wants to create a decentralized internet where censorship is almost impossible. Imagine a public space where no one can silence you, no matter how controversial your ideas are.
It's a powerful image. But how does it even work? What makes it so resistant to censorship?
So instead of relying on one central server that can be controlled or shut down, Nostr spreads data across a huge network of computers. It's like,
Like a backup system, but on a massive scale.
yeah, kind of. Think of it as a swarm of fireflies.
Yeah.
Each one is a tiny light, but together they create something much bigger and more resilient.
So no single point of failure. You'd have to shut down the entire network to stop information from flowing.
Exactly. And even then, it's like, good luck with that. It's a truly distributed system. Super hard to control.
Okay, so we've got freedom money and a censorship-resistant internet. These are pretty radical ideas when you think about it. Where else could this decentralization go? Kind of mind-blowing, right? Like, if we could decentralize money and information, what else could change?
That's the big question. This article hints at some possibilities. Imagine, like, voting systems, but decentralized. Election fraud would be almost impossible.
Now, that would be a game changer. No more questioning the results.
Right. Or think about supply chains. A decentralized system could track, products from start to finish, total transparency.
So you'd know exactly where your coffee came from all the way back to the farm.
Exactly. And those are just a couple of examples. The potential here is huge, and we're just getting started.
Okay, seeing the bigger picture now. But let's be real. There's got to be some downsides, right? A world without any central authority seems a bit chaotic.
You're right to be cautious. The article admits that decentralized systems aren't perfect. A big challenge is, like, fairness and accountability. If no one's in charge, how do you stop bad actors from taking advantage?
So it's like the Wild West out there. Do we need some kind of rules, even in a decentralized system?
It's a tough balance. Too many rules, and you stifle innovation, defeat the purpose. Too few, and yeah, you get exploitation.
Almost like we need a whole new way of thinking about governance. If we're spreading power out, how do we make sure it's used for good?
It's a huge question. The article actually points to indigenous cultures. They've used consensus-based decision-making for centuries.
So we can learn from the past as we move into this new future.
Exactly. There's a lot we can learn from those who've shared resources and made decisions together without needing hierarchies.
That's a really interesting perspective. So it's not just tech, it's about how we relate to each other, how we govern ourselves as a society.
Exactly. And that's what makes this whole conversation so fascinating. It's not just about, like, the technical details, it's about the world we want to build with them.
This has really got me thinking. Lots of potential, but definitely risks too. Are there any other red flags to watch out for?
One concern is that these systems could be dominated by a few, even without a single leader. Like, imagine a small group controlling most of the Bitcoin or having too much influence on a network.
So even with good intentions, we could end up with the same power imbalances we're trying to escape.
Yeah, that's the risk. It's not enough to just decentralize.
Yeah.
We have to design these systems so they're fair, inclusive, and accountable.
Right, just slapping a decentralized label on something doesn't automatically make it good. We need to be aware of the pitfalls and try to prevent them.
Absolutely. And another challenge is complexity. Decentralized systems can be tough to understand, even harder to participate in, especially for people who aren't tech savvy.
So could this actually make the gap bigger between those who have power and those who don't? If only a few understand it, how can everyone benefit?
That's why education is key. The more people understand this tech, the more power they have to shape the future.
So it's not about blindly loving every new technology. It's about getting the knowledge to make smart decisions about how we use them.
Exactly. We need enthusiasm, but also a healthy dose of skepticism. Question assumptions, consider the downsides, work together to create systems that work for everyone.
That's a tall order, but important. So where do we even go from here? Like, how do we build this more fair and decentralized future? It's exciting, but also kind of overwhelming.
Yeah, I get it. It's a lot to process. We don't need all the answers right away, though. It's more about exploring, experimenting, learning as we go.
So less about having a perfect plan, more about just taking those first steps and seeing what happens.
Exactly. And the article actually talks about El Salvador's whole Bitcoin thing as a real-world example of that.
Right. Making Bitcoin legal tender, that was a bold move. Like, they're diving headfirst into this decentralized future.
Yeah, and you might agree with it or not, but it's definitely interesting. They're tackling these real problems and showing what's possible when you rethink the old systems.
It's like a giant experiment right in front of us. Speaking of experiments, are there smaller steps people can take if they're curious about decentralization but don't know where to start?
Definitely. Tons of resources online. Learn about blockchain, decentralized finance, all these projects popping up. The article actually mentions some websites and groups to check out.
Awesome. We'll link those in the show notes for everyone listening. It's funny. We started with ancient philosophers and ended up in this world of cutting-edge tech.
It all connects though, right? Power, freedom, how we organize ourselves, those are age-old questions, and tech gives us new ways to explore them in ways we never could before.
It's exciting, for sure, and a little daunting. Like, we're on the edge of a huge shift, and it's up to all of us to shape it.
Couldn't agree more. We're writing the future right now. We all have a say in what it looks like, so keep learning, keep questioning, and most importantly, keep talking about it.
Well said. And to everyone listening, we'll leave you with this. If you could redesign the world using these ideas, what would it look like? What matters most? How do we make sure it's fair and balanced, even without someone in control? Lots to think about. But hey, that's what deep dives are for. Until next time, keep exploring.